Sadly, ladies and gentlemen, we did not start 2019 on a great foot, as a voice, if not the voice of professional wrestling, has sadly passed away on January 2nd. This voice being Mean Gene Okerlund. Mean Gene's career started in 1970 as a replacement for the AWA's host and announcer Marty O'Neill. By the end of the 1970s, Mean Gene would be the permanent host of the AWA, having interviews with the likes of Jesse the Body Ventura, Vern Gagne, Andre the Giant, Bobby the Brain Heenan, and beginning a relationship with Hulk Hogan. He stayed in the AWA until 1983, when he eventually left for the WWF with Hulk Hogan and Bobby the Brain Heenan. While in the WWF, he would become a part of some of the most famous catchphrases throughout the industry, whether it was Hulk Hogan's "Now let me tell you something, Mean Gene," or the Macho Man's "Oh yeah, cream of the crop" interview. Mean Gene Okerlund was a part of them all during this golden era of the WWF. He was not only an announcer, though, he actually took part in some action. He teamed with Hulk Hogan to face George the Animal Steele and Mr. Fuji, actually getting the pin on Mr. Fuji, a former tag team champion himself. Although Okerlund had no real action, he did have to get in the ring after receiving a high five from Hulk Hogan and the ref mistaking it for a tag. Besides the memorable interviews, he also had memorable segments on both Superstars and Saturday Night's Main Event. A favorite of mine being when he went to the zoo with George the Animal Steele, and they would look at different animals and compare them to wrestlers of that time. One in particular was when he saw something that looked like a weasel, and he and George both declared that this was Bobby Heenan. He also famously took part in the reveal of the gobbledygooker. For those of you that do not know this infamous segment, an egg was supposed to hatch at Survivor Series. This Survivor Series had the debut of The Undertaker, and many thought it was going to be him coming out of the egg. This Survivor Series egg also was thought to have been the debut of Ric Flair, or some other legend coming to the WWF. Unfortunately for the fans, and for Mean Gene, it was the gobbledygooker, also known as Hector Guerrero, in a turkey suit. They went in the ring and they did a little dance, and after that, the Gooker was not seen until the WrestleMania 17 gimmick Battle Royal. Coincidentally, a Battle Royal Mean Gene would be an announcer for. The other famous moment in Mean Gene's WWF career came at the Slammy Awards when he sang Tutti Frutti, a theme which would inevitably be his lasting theme song. His final WWF pay-per-view was at SummerSlam 1993, and he has stated in many interviews that he was never actually offered a new WWF contract. He then debuted in WCW in 1993, and when his contract was up in 1996, he reached out to the WWF, but was ultimately rejected. Now, from my point of view, this would be because at the time, the WWF felt slighted by Gene, as he was one of their big talents that left to go to WCW, along with Heenan, Hogan, Savage, Piper, and the like. He stayed with WCW until its ending in 2001. He was a pivotal part in the creation of the NWO, actually getting in the ring with the three men once Hogan was revealed to be the third man, and asking Hogan what the heck is going on here. This is when Hogan uttered those famous words, "The fans can stick it, brother." Another famous, quote you could say in Mean Gene's WCW career was whenever he would interview the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. Ric Flair would come out and he would go, "Mean, woo, by God, Gene." And the fans knew that they were about to hear words from quite possibly the greatest of all time, who was being interviewed by another, perhaps, greatest of all time. Mean Gene also wrestled for the WCW twice. once with Buff Bagwell against other announcer Mark Madden and Chris Kanyon, and then again against Mark Madden. Both times he won. When WCW went under, he actually appeared at the gimmick Battle Royal at WrestleMania, as I previously alluded to. He and Bobby Heenan were the announcers. What a great moment it was for fans to see Mean Gene and Bobby the Brain both back under the WWF umbrella. After this, he hosted many exclusive shows and content for the WWE and WWF over the rest of his career, these being Confidential, Madison Square Garden Classics, Classics on Demand, and Storytime. Mean Gene would also make sure to make appearances at every old school Raw, Raw 25, Blast from the Past, SmackDown. Whenever legends were involved, you could be assured Mean Gene would be there. Speaking of SmackDown Blast from the Past, he teamed with Sheamus to defeat Alberto Del Rio and Daniel Bryan in what would be Mean Gene's final match. His final appearance for the company itself was on Raw 25. He interviewed AJ Styles. AJ Styles then got to say the famous Hulk Hogan phrase, "Now let me tell you something, Mean Gene." And after he did it, he looked at Mean Gene and said, "Man, I've always wanted to say that," showing the respect that even someone as phenomenal as AJ Styles has for the legendary Mean Gene. As I said, he sadly passed away on January 2nd, 2019. But before then, besides being inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2006, he was also inducted into the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame in 2016 and the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame also in 2016. This just shows the impact that Mean Gene Okerlund had on the industry, being inducted in these three very important Hall of Fames for the industry. Now, although his last appearance was Raw 25, you could feel his last impact on the following Raw when Hulk Hogan came out to do a tribute for his fallen brother, Mean Gene Okerlund. You could tell that Hulk Hogan was very beat up about the entire situation, and he wore a Mean Gene a Mania shirt. He came out and he cut a large promo in the Hogan character, saying he felt Mean Gene right there with him. And for one last time, he got to say, "Let me tell you something, Mean Gene." And the fans loved it. No matter how you feel about Hulk Hogan as a person, I strongly recommend you search out this interview. It was touching, and you knew that Mean Gene was smiling down. As an added bonus, Hogan said that Mean Gene was up there in a Heaven pay-per-view, also involving Roddy Piper, Mr. Perfect, Macho Man, Warrior, and it was just a great and touching moment to see Hulk Hogan remember many of the men that helped him get to the position that he was in. And for one last time, we here at Pro Wrestling Proverbs would like to say thank you, Mean Gene, for everything that you have ever done and for all that you will continue to do for the industry. One key example of this is in Renee Young. When Renee Young first started with the WWE, she was paired a lot of times with Mean Gene Okerlund, almost as a mentor, if you will. And I couldn't think of a better mentor for Renee Young, and it definitely shows in her style, her commentary. She had a great mentor to be influenced by. If you would like more content from us, make sure that you continue to subscribe and like our videos here on YouTube. You can also find us on SoundCloud and iTunes. The link is in our Twitter bio, which is at PW Proverbs, or you can search Pro Wrestling Proverbs in both SoundCloud and iTunes. Now, of course, if you're already listening here on YouTube, you can go back into our catalog and look at the previous episodes that we've had. Other tributes to wrestlers, pay-per-view recaps, top 10 list, whatever the like. This has been Logan Keith with Pro Wrestling Proverbs and our Mean Gene Okerlund tribute.